2022. Time is 6:06. Thank you. I would ask Commissioner Pressler if you would lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do any of the commissioners have declarations of conflict or disclosures? No. Okay, move on. Agenda, approval of the agenda. Anybody see anything wrong with that?
Oh, they fixed it.
I don't see anything wrong. Okay, take a motion.
I motion that we approve the agenda as written.
Second.
Motion and second, take a vote. Let's start our vote from the right-hand side. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Review of the minutes. Has everybody had time to look at those? I know it was kind of quick tonight and there's 3 minutes of it. Everybody comfortable with that? Okay, I'll take a motion.
I move that we accept the minutes from September, October, and November planning commission meetings.
2023. Okay.
I agree. I second.
Motion is second, take a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
I didn't get them, so actually.
Now is when we open up the public forum. This is an opportunity to talk about anything that you like in Tokerville. I would ask that you hold back on anything that's on the business items tonight, so we can do that during the public hearing. So it is now open for public forum. Yep. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes. State your name and address and address the microphone, please.
My name is Richard Hoffman. I live at 1634 South Chaparral Drive in Tokerville. And I'm here tonight because I was involved in a water planning meeting, and there's quite a push out to get us to be more, to conserve water better. So I applied online. There's some rebates out there. I have a big lawn. And I'm gonna take it out here regardless, but I have a big lawn, and so I applied for it and found out that I'm not eligible, or anybody in Tokerville is not eligible for any of these rebates because they do not pass the required water efficiencies. And just to keep it simple, probably isn't anything that's probably been before you guys, or you maybe not be aware of it, but I have a copy here from the person that's in charge at the Water Conservancy. Here's what their requirements are for the city to become eligible for this. And I'm on a planning commission for the city of Laverton because I have a business there. They gave me a copy of what they did. This is way more than you have to do to qualify for the program. But it's not just me that applied. I was told that it's not just me that's applied for these rebates. There's other people in Tokerville that have gotten the same reply, which is here. But if you would like this, I'll give it to you. And I would appreciate it if you take it into some consideration. I don't think it's probably an easy thing to do, but it's important that we all take part in conserving water. There's no question that we're in a drought situation here, and there's a lot of growth. I'm going to take out about 6,000 feet of lawn and replace it with desert landscape. It has been expensive for me to keep it up. It wasn't really the money. It's the idea that I'd like to participate in it. I believe that water is important. So if you like this, I've got this together for you.
And I have that same email. Did Water District put out a landscape ordinance to conserve water? And City Council has not passed that ordinance. So they have to pass that ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, take a motion to close the public forum.
I'll make a motion to close the public forum.
Take a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that moves us to our reports. The only thing that I would like to say is that I'd like to welcome Jenny Chamberlain as an alternate to the planning commission. I know she will be doing that. Commissioners, anybody else? Report? Darren? Okay, well, in the discussion on the business. Okay, all right. Okay, okay. All right, perfect. Okay, to the business items. I think business items F1 through 3 can kind of be combined. This is discussion and possible appointment of planning commission chair for 2023, discussion and possible appointment of planning commission pro temp for 2023, and discussion of appointment. So he's already been appointed, but we will be moving Wayne from an alternate to just a planning commissioner. So I think we can do F1 through 3 in one motion and discussion. You guys want to do that?
Sure.
Okay, let's open that up.
So I would like to make a motion to have you, Sean Huntsman, as the planning chair. And
And,
Val as the, since we're doing it all at the same time,
okay,
as the pro temp.
okay.
We're looking for a second.
And then we will welcome Wayne as a.
And yes, welcome.
Chair.
All new to me.
Yeah, I've got a motion.
Okay, you'll have to second your own motion.
You good with that? Or do you want
I'm okay.
to give me a second?
Second, there you go. You
Okay.
can effectively second yourself.
Okay, so we have planning commission chair, myself, Sean Huntsman. We've got Valerie Presma, as our pro temp, and Wayne is now a permanent, an alternate planning commissioner. Okay, next.
The vote?
Oh, I'm sorry, we need to vote that.
Aye.
I,
Aye.
okay, now do business item F4, which is oath of office for Jenny Chamberlain, planning commission. You'll have it. You'll just turn around. and- Okay, business item F5, discussion on nightly rental application submitted by Keisha Fry, tax ID T-125-D-1-A. Okay, yeah, I did see that actually, just, okay. So, staff have any comments?
Just in your package, you'll see the staff comments, and also the comments from the committee. Basically,
Did you see?
just so you know, the stat, you'll have the comments, and then you'll also have the Joint Utility Committee staff comments. We had actually
the application's been in for quite some time. They came in right after your last deadline with their application. So we've had quite a bit of time to take it to the Joint Utility Committee twice. And in the interim between those two, UDOT from the first Joint Utility Committee to the one today, they asked that we meet with them because there was I forget what the name of the permit was. It's a conditional access permit. Anyway, so in that they've been asked to create a driveway on the south end because of the crest of the hill there and the sight distances. So their main driveway will be moved to the south there, kind of where that red, it says sign on the lower right corner of your corner there. UDOT has asked them to create a all-weather surface access there. And today's discussion with the Joint Utility Committee, and I've gotten some red lines from them, from several of them. The biggest concern was the high-pressure gas line that goes right there. They don't like to have equipment on top of their high-pressure gas line, so they're going to have to coordinate that with them. It is Tokerville City policy that we have them create a detailed grading plan as well as utility plan for that. And I don't think that Jeff's here. I'll let him speak to this afterwards. But the Joint Utility Committee, they didn't have any issues necessarily. They just wanted it to be mindful and to see where all of those utilities and then how deep their utility would be with a driveway coming over their existing utilities. Because we've got Tokerville City has their main water line that feeds all of south of town is right there. And then you've got Ash Creek Sewer District has a line that comes through there actually behind the house, the back on the west side of the house. And then you've got multiple utilities where that says Old Pioneer Road. That's actually was created for a utility corridor. So there's water, I believe, I'm not sure if there's a sewer line. No, there's no sewer line, is there? Okay, so there's a ton of utilities there. They wanted to see that and then go through that joint utility. So today I started gathering information from the Utility Commission, and we'll have the applicant show a map that shows the detail of the grading with the cut or the depth and then the deep depth of the new driveway, what the fill will be on top of the lines. They didn't have any oppositions to it. They just said we need to see construction plans so that we know what's happening there. And the coordination with them. I think that UDOT is very amenable there. There's power. There's a power pole, overhead power pole. Rocky Mountain Power had comments today too. Everybody was just really concerned with seeing this map, and it's pretty much going to be a one-page map. So if the Planning Commission so desires, that I would say that you need to make a motion somehow or another with the condition that you take into the Joint Utility Commission's comments and also staff comments.
Easement?
Not as of yet, as the access. So it's not an easement, it's an access. Yeah. So Matt Rhodes and Jeff Bunker at UDOT both were very favorable. They just wanted to, they wanted to see what it was going, the construction drawing, basically the grading plan of how that would be. It's not going to be Tokerville City. Before it triggers a true grading permit from us, they have to move more than 2,000 cubic yards before it goes into a large scale one. They have to do a minor grading permit with us and go through that process. But other than that, I don't know if you guys want to ask Jeff.
Will you not give them a design of what they require to go over that, or is that?
No, they just said that they require, I think it was, they require a 30-foot wide, 30-foot width, right? Oh, max 24. There you go. Yeah.
Did anybody see staff comments on that?
I didn't. I don't see any
Because I
staff
didn't
comments.
see any staff comments. You-
Really? I do. I just reiterated them. I do not have them right in front of me. And I actually don't have my computer right in front of me because I had some issues with it wouldn't pull up. I've got like a dead zone right here for Wi-Fi.
That you recommend that we.
Yeah,
Its recommendations.
correct. And I apologize that wasn't in there. It should have been. Did you get my comments on the other items in there, or was this none? Because there should have been.
I know I saw it. on
And the
some-
nightly ordinance there is.
Okay. There should have been something for most everything in there. And they were pretty simple. So if you guys need, when we come up to those other items, let me know. So basically that's kind of the Reader's Digest version. I should print them out, I guess. I didn't think of that. Unless, anyway. Unless Daisy, do you guys really want to see them? Because we possibly could pull them up if Daisy can access the F drive. Can you access the F drive from there? No, there they are, right there. There you go.
Number of
So this was, yeah, so the number one was the November 23rd application. And I just asked you to look at the JUC. There's also another one in there that's called the JUC comments. But it's complete. It's compliant to the code. And then that number 5 was the biggest thing at that point. So we set up a meeting and we met with UDOT, the applicant, myself, and the UDOT. And that basically the outcome of that meeting was to bring it back to the Joint Utility Committee for their comments of an access on that south side. And that's what we found out today. And I have not had time to type that up from what happened this morning. So I was just kind of more giving you a report on that.
We're gonna open it up to a public hearing on the.
Yeah, I've got some questions.
Jeff.
Did you guys want me now? Okay. Jeff Fry, 1180 South Choya and 590 Tocqueville Boulevard with the property in question. You had some questions. Sorry. Well, I guess I'll just make a statement. So this isn't the first property we've done something similar to. My current address, 1180 South, we actually worked over a course of 5 years with the city in subdividing that property into 3 properties and adding a private road, which is probably the best private road that Tocqueville has at this time. It's a full 26 feet wide with asphalt and curb and gutter. And so this is something that we have acquired a skill set to do, which all 3 properties, the 2 adjacent to where the home is actually all part of the parcel in question that we're going to be working with to try and create a better access road all the way through to the back side of the property. And then we'll see what we do from there.
So you have other nightly rentals?
My wife has a business that manages nightly rentals. We're in Hurricane and Laverican, not in Tocqueville yet. So we're very familiar with the business. We've been doing that for about 6 years.
You know that in Tocqueville, you can order homes.
Correct. And this is our first one in Tocqueville.
Okay, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, promotion closed, public hearing.
Motion to close public hearing.
I'll second.
Got a vote?
Oh,
Motion and
aye.
a second. Aye.
So, I'm thinking on that. I want to make a motion to table that because I think it behoove everybody to get your UDOT permit first. It might sound like they come easy, but they don't come easy sometimes. So he might be just waiting for 6 months to get that permit. So would it any benefit to us to okay it? So you want to approve it before you get that permit from UDOT.
With conditions of getting that, so it would be basically like table it if you doesn't get it.
It isn't Toccoa City you're dealing with, you're dealing with UDOT.
Right, but they would not be able to, so just so you know, they would not be able to start until they satisfied UDOT. So they're gonna be working this as far as now, but.
Yeah.
If that's up to you guys, that's fine, too.
I think we should just stay on the motivation of that.
We wouldn't want them to reapply.
Well, the city works with UDOT, we have our portal, the city works with whoever they are to get the permits. So it's actually a fairly simple process, you gotta put your DPS coordinates and do that. So if you do table it for that, you might push it back. If you don't table it for that, by the time it gets to council, we could potentially have, the conditional access. It could take anywhere from, a couple of weeks to, we could have it to a year, but, when we did the calculation, it took 40 days.
And with this case, the biggest thing would be them getting that it's agreed to by, that you already started that process, I thought, except for,
Who is the encroachment officer for UDOT? It's not Matt Rose. Is he the encroachment officer?
And Matt Rose approves the conditional access on.
I feel comfortable with him. He's solid. He's solid.
I'll take a comment from
The approval's valid for a year, like you said, so if he's got a year to get this, so he has a year with UDOT. It's additional on that. It's a year.
Don't see a problem with it.
So you had a motion, you want to change that motion?
I didn't have a motion. I suggested. But I'll make a motion. We approve that with UDOT's approval and
Condition of staff comments.
staff comments, yep.
I'll second that.
Or the United Government.
Got a motion in a second. Any further need for discussion?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that moves us to business item F6, discussion on nightly rental ordinance to establish conditions for commercial zones. Staff have anything to say about that?
Yeah, yeah.
So the next, on the staff comments on that, was just basically this is the ordinance that, Bruce Jenkins
Yes.
and the city attorney and the conflict council attorney, I presented before you last time. You guys sat down, 2 monthly meetings ago and discussed this with Bruce and the ideas of different changes, different concepts of that. This was actually done 2 months ago. I think, Sean, you were absent at that meeting, but I believe everybody else was here.
I was absent.
Okay. So, Bruce is here to also to fill you in on the changes that came because of that night. So, he's down as well.
Yep, Bruce, would you like to?
Yeah, so let me, start at 10 or 20,000 feet and move down a little bit. Here we go. So this draft ordinance, first came before the planning commission, I'll call it a couple months ago. I'm not great with exact dates, but a couple of months ago, the planning commission basically sent it up to the city council with the 5 votes, no votes, or not recommending. Denial, recommending denial. The city council considered it and then required of the planning commission to consider, but to prepare a nightly rental ordinance with some guidelines, parameters the city council put together. And that the planning commission then review that, consider it, improve upon it, and then come back to the council with recommendations. Now, what's important about that process that the planning commission needs to understand is that first review, that was sort of came up to the from the planning commission with really no recommendation of denial. It was my conclusion that it was not properly before the city council at that time. There's two ways that ordinances, land use ordinances, come before the city council. One is from what I call the bottom up, and one from the top down. All of them must go through the planning commission, but the first one originates when the planning commission brings to the council a proposed ordinance, and with recommendations. Or take that back. When it comes from the planning commission up, there must be a recommendation. They must recommend it. I just make a recommendation. They must recommend it to the council. Think about it this way. Why would you, from the bottom up, why would you give an ordinance to the council you didn't like? You wouldn't, right? When it comes from the bottom up, you guys are the generators of that. You would recommend the council to adopt. They can choose to or not.
Excuse me. We didn't generate that.
Now,
We did not generate that ordinance at all. I don't understand your thinking
I
here.
didn't say it came from.
It came from us. It was gave to us via whoever wrote it. We didn't generate it, Bruce.
Well,
We
so
passed it on as a denial. That was our recommendation.
I understand that, but when you fit that in the framework of the land use management ordinance, LUDMA, I'm telling you what LUDMA considers, okay? How LUDMA approaches it. You guys, when I say LUDMA, I see, you know what I'm talking about when I say LUDMA? Land Use Development and Management Act, 10(9)A. That is what governs land use in the state of Utah. From that act, the city then adopts various ordinances, zoning, subdivision, and the like. That act provides the framework and the authority for that to happen. Under that act, there are two ways that ordinances come, land use ordinances come before the city council for consideration. Notwithstanding a discussion, and I'll get back to that. I'm not ignoring the concern. Notwithstanding how the ordinance was prepared and initially received by the planning commission, what happened is it came from the planning commission. The first body that saw it was the planning commission. And the planning commission sent it up to the city council. I get that it was a recommendation for denial. Okay, I get that. And I get that the planning commission didn't draft it. You get that. Personally, didn't draft it. It was received, I had some input into that document, but it was drafted by Heath Snow based upon a discussion that was had between the developer and myself. Heath was there, a couple of council members, but it was,
Wait, did you say a couple council members was there?
at least one was there. I can't remember the example. Well, and that.
Which council member was there?
So let me do this. If I'm not here to be interrogated. So
I
if
know,
you
but
want
I
to
asked
interrogate
I asked the
somebody,
direct
don't make it
question, Bruce,
I don't
at that
remember.
meeting, if it came from the council, and no, it did not.
It didn't. I hadn't got there yet.
You just said council members.
I said they were present.
I'm just
I mean,
getting confused
get it.
about it
I
a
mean,
little bit.
I get confusion. I'm not trying to add to that.
Me
I'm trying
too.
to- Trying to clarify it, but if I'm here to kindly try to clarify, I don't want to be interrogated by my own client. You know what I mean?
I'm not interrogating, I'm asking the question.
Well, I forget that, but you can ask it in a way,
Let's let it finish.
you can ask it in a way that is just,
You blunt?
it's not, well, I don't mind being blunt, I'm blunt all the time. But what I'm saying is there was a discussion about there is not a framework in the city to allow nightly rentals and firelight in the way they want to do it. It just isn't. And I bluntly told Firelight There isn't a way. If there is going to be a way, there's only going to be a way if there's an ordinance. So what happened is this ordinance, when the city council first saw it, they'd never seen it until it came from the planning commission up with a denial. And I wasn't here when the planning commission considered when I say I wasn't here, I wasn't at the meeting when the planning commission recommended denial. Had I been there, I may have recommended to the planning commission that you don't need to take any action at all on it, because if you're not going to recommend it positively, then it's not. I mean, you recommended 5-0 denial, but when it comes from the bottom up, now I'll pull the statute if you want me to. When the planning commission first gives it to the council, you must recommend it to the council. You guys did. So the council didn't act on it, because I said to the council, it's not properly before you. The planning commission hasn't recommended it, and they may never recommend this ordinance. So the next way for an ordinance to come before city council is for the city council to give directive to the planning commission. Go prepare me an ordinance and send it back to me with recommendations. Notice the statute uses the word differently. When it comes from the planning commission up, you must recommend. From it, and the way I read that, and I don't think I'm wrong. If you guys generate it, why would you do anything other than recommend an ordinance you believe is good, right? You're going to recommend it. When it's council telling you guys, go get me an ordinance to address this issue, you can send it back with recommendations. The statute changes the word. Recommendations. Recommendations can be positive, negative, for, against. Okay. So what the city council did at their meeting, realizing that there was not an ordinance before them to act upon, because I told them, you didn't get affirmative recommendation from the planning commission, you don't have anything to act upon. Which goes along with your denial, if you will. Kind of, the planning commission recommended denial, and I'm telling the council you can't even act upon it. You can't ignore the denial and pass something anyway. You can't even act upon it. So the planning commission's action, in my view, got the intended result. Nothing happened. You're in a different posture now. You're in the posture now where the city council has said, go and do as we have told you to do. Go and work on a nightly rental ordinance. And I prepared that then, and that was just me preparing it that way. I prepared that along the lines of what the council had said at that meeting and wanted the ordinance to consider. Came to the planning commission, and 2 meetings ago, we had the discussion about, okay, some of the things we like, some of the things we don't like. Bruce, go back and tweak the ordinance, the draft ordinance, and get it back to us for consideration, which is what I did for tonight. Okay. So the role of this body, as I see it tonight, irrespective of how the last one went, it didn't get acted upon. The council couldn't, in my view, act upon. It's your job to respond to the council with your best efforts. Whatever that is, whether that best effort is accomplished tonight or at a later period on further review, it's up to you guys to decide what those best efforts are. But the council wants something back with some sound recommendations about what you like with the draft ordinance, what you don't like, whether you think it violates some other aspect of Cokerville's ordinances and plans. And that's what the council needs to hear back. Because again, they told you to go and do, you then give it your best effort and then give it back. Then they can consider the recommendations for or against, in total or in part, or whatever your recommendations are, they can consider it, and then they get to make the decision.
One question, please. In our first denial, we had pretty lengthy comment on why we denied it. I heard you say that they can't act on it.
They couldn't then,
Yeah,
because the way it came up to them.
okay. So denial, so we said, no, we don't think it should fit in Tocqueville. However, we said a lot of different things at that meeting. We're a recommending body. Council, at least the way I understand it, council could have made a decision. on
No,
it and said, hey,
no.
we want this done.
That's why I'm taking this 20,000-foot view and telling you,
Okay, so,
Just from where it originated, right? So it didn't originate from the council the first time.
well, it
That's
did,
right.
it didn't
when
originate.
we talk about originated, and let me clarify what I'm calling originated. I'm not talking about who initially penned it. Okay? I'm talking about the process under the Land Use Management Act by which it came up to the council. The first, I'm assuming we'd all agree that the first time that the council saw that, act upon it, was after the planning commission recommended a denial, right? So where did that ordinance first come from? It came from below up, right? When it comes that way, and
Where did it come from?
So,
well, I know, and with all due respect, I'll use the word hung up on because I can't think of another one right now. We can all get hung up on who penned it. Okay, that's not what LUDMA, Land Use Management Act. That's not what LUDMA is concerned with. So whether I penned it, and again, I had some input in it, it wasn't I didn't pen it. And the planning commission itself didn't pen it, right? And the city council didn't pen it.
So who pushed it up to the planning commission?
It was presented to the planning commission by Firelight as a proposed ordinance for not just Firelight, but for the town, city as a whole. Okay. But
Anybody brings, I wanted to bring something or had a meeting, I thought. That's the commissioner.
any citizen could even do it, just like tonight earlier on the
But the thing to keep in mind is that
Water.
East Snow is city snow. He is our city snow. The issue that they're talking about is that the bill that it was presented by East Snow representing Firelight, not East Snow representing everybody. This ordinance is obviously tricky for a couple of reasons. And yes, it is back here because of the city rule, right?
in my view,
For procedural reasons.
in my view, the city council could not have acted on it.
This ordinance is a little bit tricky because of the fact that, yes, Firelight is proposing 90 rentals in our city. However, the ordinance applies to everyone in the city. So on one hand, yes, it is appropriate that East Snow is responsible for drafting and taking it all the way through planning commission, working with staff and through staff, through planning commission, and all the way up through council. That is appropriate because of the fact that this ordinance affects everybody in the city, not just Firelight. So that's critical that we understand that. But the second thing with that is, on the other hand, no, it should not come from a developer. An ordinance should not come from a developer or from their attorney. That should come from Commonwealth Council. So were there reasons that he was involved? Definitely. It's for, this ordinance is not just for Firelight. So that's why he was involved. Whether you like the way it came or you don't like the way, that's for you guys to decide. But that's why he was also involved, not just for Firelight, he was involved for the entire city.
Well, for three property owners, not necessarily the whole entire
Or
city,
anybody else who
Well,
comes to buy
anybody-
100 acres.
anybody on
and
that,
starts an MPDO.
but anybody on that highway.
Amazon,
It's
Firelight,
anybody with
Lane.
an
It's
MPDO,
anybody with an MPDO.
whether along the highway or not.
We could have a land trade go through, we could have that BLM land trade go through, it's over 100 acres, we could have another developer come in, apply for an MPDO and be subject to the same thing. It's not just the bypass.
I thought in this ordinance, though, it says off of Topher Boulevard.
It started that way.
It started that way.
So is it not still in here?
It is not, because the city council suggested that the ordinance apply to wherever there is an MPDO,
Right.
not just along.
I thought I read that just the other day, but
It is.
You may have an old version. So Stacy, let me tell you about, if anyone's concerned about the, a draft of the ordinance that suggested that it be along the parkway, that was my suggestion as an initial draft. That came from me. Because it's similar to what Rockville did with sort of their bypass road that says if you can have nightly rentals, you've got to access some office. It's some way to limit where the nightly rentals would be so people know where it would be contained. The council thought that it would be more appropriate, again, when they are making the requirement. That the planning commission look at an ordinance now.
yeah, this one's changed.
So
Mine are the same. It says Topher River Parkway, access that Topher River Parkway.
Right. Yeah, I've got two different ones. One says that, and one says this.
Might need to be, Queen should be the final one. Okay. So I will deal with that. Well, what I want to do is, because this will affect how you guys operate, not just on this ordinance, but on all ordinances moving forward. I want to be very clear about how this works and why it works this way, so you can know why I told the city council when there was a recommendation of denial, that the city council couldn't then even act upon the ordinance despite your denial and pass the ordinance anyway. They couldn't. That is, go up to this. It's 10.9A.502, the Utah Code. This is saying what a planning commission shall do. And this is with respect to adoption of a land use regulation, right? So we're all on the same page. If we're going to deal with nightly rentals in a development, this is a land use regulation. It says that the planning commission shall hold a public hearing on the proposed land use regulation and review and recommend, and the word is recommend, to the legislative body a proposed land use regulation. You got that ordinance there? Is that what you're showing, or the other?
He's looking for that.
Okay, but, so, again, why would the planning commission recommend something they don't believe in? You wouldn't, right? That recommendation, in my view, by that means an affirmative, you must recommend it. If I recommend you to go to a movie, I'm telling you this is a movie you ought to go see. If I recommend a restaurant, it's because I'm telling you to go see a restaurant. Now, if I'm making recommendations, I'm changing the word, I'm making recommendations, I can say something positive or negative, right? I would recommend against this or that. I'm not recommending. My recommendation is not for this one. So now let's look at what the statute says when it talks about, this is from the bottom up. When it comes from the planning, the council down, okay? A legislative body may not make an amendment, because you're now amending the zoning ordinance, right? To the zoning ordinance, unless the legislative body first submits the amendment to the planning commission. So now it's coming from the top down. From the planning commission, for the planning commission's recommendation. Right?
Say that again. Altogether.
So the first one is when the planning commission, there's two ways in Utah for a land use ordinance to be amended or adopted. One is from the planning commission to recommend to the council. Right? You worked on it, you prepared it, you recommended it. Please adopt. Then in 10-9A-503, a separate statute, there's another process. And that process is saying that a legislative body may not make any, it may not make any amendment unless the legislative body first submits the amendment. Legislative body, they came up with the idea. They submit it to the planning commission. They can't do it on their own. They can't bypass you guys at all. If it's their idea and they think it's the best thing since sliced bread about how something should be done, they can't just have me craft an ordinance and they vote on it and they adopt it without giving it to the planning commission, right? That's your job. The gatekeeper of that. So they have to first give it to the planning commission for the planning commission's recommendation. It doesn't say the planning commission must recommend. It's for the planning commission's recommendation. And at that point, you can recommend for or against approval or denial in whole or in part for whatever reasons, right? So this draft ordinance has changed its procedural posture. The first time around, the first body to see it was the planning commission. You did not recommend adoption to the council. And because you didn't recommend adoption, I told the council, you can't act on it at all. You can't say, oh, I've heard the planning commission's recommendations, but I'm going to vote for it anyway. This time, now the procedural posture is the city council has said, planning commission, go and do. Here's a proposed ordinance. I want you to give it back to me with a recommendation.
Either or.
Either or.
And any input that we have going along with that.
And yes, in fairness to the council, and they've asked for, and they deserve the input. Yeah, we don't recommend doesn't give them any guidance, because when it comes back to them this time, they can adopt it if they choose to, even if you recommend denial. Because at this point, it comes back to them in a procedural posture where the planning commission can make a recommendation, which is different than recommending.
And we may recommend changes.
You may recommend
With changes.
Yes.
But we may be able to recommend for or against.
Yes,
We can recommend a position that we think that they should take on that.
yes, yes.
I'm just saying not recommend or recommendation.
You need to
Hung
make
up on
it.
2 words, so we said the wrong word.
We're making a recommendation.
No, the last time I don't think you said the wrong word.
Well, we need to recommend something.
You can recommend
And it's
for
close
or
to that.
deny.
I'm not trying to mince words with you.
I
But-
understand it, but I thought that got recommended last time.
I just got-
Well,
Because of,
get?
no, because of where it came from.
There's a procedural, yes, it's the procedural posture that
It came from us.
changes the landscape.
So what he's
Let's just
saying
go through
is,
it.
when this ordinance came from the attorneys and came up through planning commission, it should have been sent through with a positive recommendation.
Or not
If-
send it
if
all.
it was
Or not send it all.
send it all. But because it went up with a negative recommendation, city council said, why does this have a negative recommendation? Send it back to you without it asking for your feedback. And you could recommend positively tonight, you could recommend negatively, or you could table it for a later date. Those are your options.
Right.
So what happened is, when it came from the attorneys and came up through planning commission, it should have only gone to planning commission with a positive recommendation. Otherwise, you guys should have not sent it up. So now that it did go up,
And now that it's
they sent it back to you
flipped.
guys and said, tell us what's different, tell us what you want different, tell us what you don't like, tell us what you like. You can either recommend it back to them now, but that's the deal. There was nothing recommended to them, so they were like, what are we doing with this ordinance in front of us? You guys never said anything.
Well,
So they didn't say anything.
But, okay. Let me try to say again, and then I don't want to belabor it, but when the planning commission is the first body to have seen the ordinance and then moves it from their plate to council's plate, and you're the first body to have seen that, you have one option and one option only. Recommend the ordinance for approval because you like it. Or there's no more.
That's it.
Or it doesn't go to council. There's no order.
There's
Or
no
it
order.
just stops. It just stays here.
Well, don't put an ordinance in front of us if we have to recommend that we like it.
No, that's not what it's saying.
Now the procedural posture has changed.
Let's just go to the new pasture and let's just get this
The
done.
change now is it's come from the city council down to you, and you, after your best efforts and best review, then make a recommendation back up to the city council. That's where we're at today.
And that's when they can vote on it.
And they can vote on it. And regardless of what you say, they can vote on it.
Yeah.
That's the procedural
Yeah,
posture where we're at.
let's move on.
And the only thing that I'm saying is, give it your best efforts, so that when you send it back up, you can say, we've looked at all these things because city council, you think it's a good idea. You told us to go do something with it. You think it's a good idea? Here's why we think it is, or here's why we think it is. Does that help? I hope.
Yes.
And let's
This is a
also-
land use item.
This is a land use item. There we go.
And let's also just, let's mention the piece now, this one, this.
What'd you say?
Yeah,
Heath is on the line.
I just don't know if he has any questions or if you can hear us.
At this point, I think it's time for, if the planning commission has any questions of me about procedural posture of where you're at, I'm happy to try to answer them again. Hopefully I've nailed that down. And now you can go about your business to take comments from the public, because this is a public hearing. You can then have discussion, and you can then decide whether you feel like you've got enough information to make a recommendation tonight, or whether you think that your best efforts would take a little more time, a little more review to make that recommendation, whatever that recommendation may be.
All right. I will, unless you have any more comments, questions, thoughts,
Well,
staff.
don't-
Suzanne?
Don't we need to discuss it?
No, we can open it to a public hearing. Unless you wanted to discuss it. If you got something to say about it, you can-
Well,
our discussion will be after the public.
okay.
Okay, I will now open this up for public hearing. Discussion nightly rental ordinance to establish conditions for commercial zones. If you have comments, please step up to the microphone, state your name and address. You're able to put 3 minutes.
Great. 83 North Boulevard. We moved here in '79, my family, because it was small, lived up here with Washington City, our house. And the reason I stayed is because it's a small city. Joey Campbell, 604 West Hill Road. I just want to kind of help clear up, not really comment on but when the ordinance came to the planning commission the first time, we thought we were voting on that ordinance without having the
And to clarify, you're now in a place where you can, in the draft I've given you is based upon some changes you suggested. You still may not be happy with it. You can make more suggestions or take the concept altogether. But Joey's correct. Last time they thought it was just an up or down, hands down vote on what was there. But now you're performing the function that the council is required of you to go look and do.
And there's things that we have suggested are in here.
There are,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Joey.
Good evening, Tim Mahoney,
Those
1608
changes
South
except the
Ashland
deletion of
Drive,
number.
Naperville. I came here to speak about a specific land rental, coming up on the agenda, but we've had some experience quite often as well. From 2015 to 2020, I was a general manager of the Inn of Entrada. It's a nightly rental organization that started in 2005 and brought us in St. George. I was general manager. I managed 27 3- and 4-bedroom high-end homes. We started at about $250 a night for $7 or $8 for a full house. So I'm here to speak against nightly rentals. Even though I was employed in that, I received a paycheck for 5 years because I saw the negative externalities that it generated. Everything from fireworks to cost of utilities to people not caring for places to their home. They treated it as if it was a place to party, a place where they could let loose, a place where they didn't have to abide by home standards that they would in their normal community. I got to experience that firsthand and respond to that firsthand on numerous occasions. I can tell you that the incentives created by development are different, far different than those created by someone renting an ADU or a room in their house, who had a physical stake in that. As the general manager there, and my task was to create profit for the owners, period. While I strove to be a good neighbor and certainly had good community relations, that wasn't my priority. I woke up in the morning, that wasn't what determined my bonus at the end of the year. It was profit. And that's the incentive that development like that creates. I'd also like to say that it contributes to inequality. The people that saw profit from that were the owners and the developers. I'm not surprised to hear a developer has input on creative environments. I understand exactly the incentive that creates and the ability that they have profit sales of those units both now and in the future. So, with an acute housing shortage, which we're all well aware of, and the negative incentives and negative externalities created, I would speak out against most negative rentals, especially for development, small scale, personalized negative rental, perfectly acceptable, and I think it'd be a great part of our community. Anything greater than that should be well considered.
Just as a matter for myself, as a matter of full disclosure, you guys know, I drafted the documents for the end of the product. Whether you like it or not, I don't know. It's not an issue. So everybody said, hey, that dirty devil that he's talking about. The draft, the draft of those documents.
I recognize that devil.
That's me. I drafted them.
We are requesting at this time that this matter is tabled and that we can spend a little more time at the, and put some things in place that we think would be comfortable for the county commission and for the city and for us. As I stated before, we're not, as this gentleman stated, we are not that developer. This developer is taking a huge amount of our own personal resources. It's going to be most likely a 20-year development, if not more for us. To start a project out that is a blight on our own community is not smart. And that's not what we're trying to accomplish. So looking through a lot of the ordinances and the proposal, I clearly feel like the nightly rental component certainly fits within the spirit of what our proposal was. I think there was some comments made, but it wasn't in there. Certainly it is. there are no pictures of them, but we provided pictures of hotels, commercial, residential. There were no pictures of actual neighborhoods, but there were photos that were included in there that stated that we had that intention. And so obviously, we have to have more in place to meet that proposal. And so we feel like it would be a good idea to take the next 30 days and work a little bit closer with you guys, come up with some ideas that may be a little bit more conducive to what we're trying to do, and also comfortable for the city. Oh, yeah, and we'd love for you guys to come out and see our community that isn't like a little community. It's government golf course that they want to touch from. It's, we've had no violence yet. We've had nothing like that. We manage it with one management company. They manage all the neighborhoods. And we have a separate management company. There's a lot of oversight, more oversight than you would see from the city, and from the police department. And so we would like to propose to have a field trip for the planning commission, city council, and the public to come out and do that meeting and just kind of give an idea of what it is that we're trying to do, and then put some language in place that for what we feel like is successful.
Anybody else?
Yeah, like a travel report about here. Brigham Garter, 220 West Old Church Road. I like, the discussion's been going on, an explanation you've given on some of this also. There was been here for about 20 years now, and that's one of the big concerns in moving here too, was a compatible atmosphere for the town and what the majority of the people would like. So personally, I would like to see the development, if they do that, an area with only a certain amount of lodging rentals, not interspersed between different homes, that sort of thing. Because we want to look at the value of what that we sell or what comes in here on your property, and the use that's going on. And being up above where I'm at, I definitely don't want to see a bunch of party or that sort of thing there. So I wouldn't mind looking at some of these other things with the planning commission and putting any recommendation that I think would be good so that we can keep that small town, so to speak. I realize it's growing a lot, but for the purposes of primarily homes rather than just apartments or rentals and sort of thing. Thank you.
Yeah, come on.
Okay, I have a question, because it might clarify a lot more stuff. When we did the work meeting on to work on the agenda or on the ordinance, there was a lot of questions. Okay, we got this one, we got that. We didn't get the ability to change the ordinance very much. We had to work within that ordinance that you had with us. We went line by line item and just worked on that ordinance. So my question is if they want more time to work on it, can they alter the ordinance? Can the planning commission go back and revamp the ordinance to do whatever they want to do? Because when it came back from the top down, you gave us instructions, we're working on this ordinance, because this is what was submitted down. If the planning commission had the full movement, go back and work on it from zero up, that's a whole different story. And if it's going to get tabled, then that doesn't make sense, because the planning commission didn't get the leeway to do that. So this is a question to clarify, because that might change a lot of tabling.
When the public comments ended and the commission has some questions, and I can address address that.
Okay.
It's a fair question. There's actually two things that have been brought up that prompted me to have some comment, but I'll wait for those until the public comment period is over.
Any other public comments? Okay, I take a motion to close. public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
I second it.
Take a vote.
Aye.
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 On his comments, if we were to send a recommendation to council, they look at it and say, this is what we want. Can they kick it back down to us and say, hey, we would like you to do it again and take a look at that?
Or can they
And
just
is
make
that
changes?
not the same? And maybe even make their own recommendations and changes to send to us because they say, we want this. And the reason I say that, one of the things for me is it feels a little bit, for me personally, being strong-armed into this decision based on where this came from. Meaning we didn't know the procedural part of it comes from them. If we send it to them, that's like us saying, here it is. So my question is if we were to give a recommendation to them tonight and they vote, hey, we want this, can they send it back down to us to reevaluate it? If we want this with changes, that's what I would.
Two responses to that, and maybe I'll talk about the procedural one that you alluded to, and then answer your direct question. But and maybe you weren't at that prior meeting, so you didn't know. The city council meeting, and then again at the planning commission meeting, I made it very clear the difference between bottom up, top down. So hopefully that it wasn't new news tonight. This would be now the third time that I've clarified the differences. Now, if you recommend something to the council today, when they meet, they can do a couple of things. One is they can ignore your recommendations, modify and adopt whatever sort of ordinance that they believe to be appropriate, or they could send it back to you again and say, yeah, we like the direction you're going, or we don't, go do some more. So from the planning commission's standpoint, it is you have to evaluate. You can't assure yourself that you can get it back anymore. So that's why I say make it the best shot, give your best efforts.
So if we recommend X, Y, and Z, they can say, no, we don't want that. We're going to do A, B, C, and we're not going to give it back to you, and we're going to pass it.
Right.
And they can do that.
They can do that.
Right.
Because what they've done is they've complied with the Land Use Management Act. They sent it to the planning commission and I'll put an S on it, for recommendations. We've made those. They complied with that. There's nothing that says they have to follow the recommendations. They don't have to agree with the recommendations, whatever you recommend, for or against. So that's the process has been complied with. Now that sort of ties into what Joey was saying, and it's as with all things. It seems like the more you pick it up, it's like, oh, you know, it's one more aspect of it. And so, gee, why didn't I think about that before? Okay. So to clarify what I said before, when it comes from the top down, and I would really hope that no one takes anything negative from that. But really, I mean, it's the legislative decision to decide how the zoning looks in this town is, if I ask the question, whose is it? Everyone would have to say it's the city council. They're the ones that make the policy decisions, right? So it shouldn't be off-putting, even though you might not like it. I just don't want it to be off-putting. I'm not telling you to like it, but it should be operative for the policymakers to say, hey, we think this is good policy. Go work on something. Here's the parameters we're giving you to work on it, and come back with recommendations. The planning commission can't feel like it is the sole repository of good ideas for the policy for the city. So it comes from the top down this time, you know. I'm not saying that agree with the recommendations, but that's your job, is to tell council, it goes back up, why you don't agree.
So they would have the opportunity to kick it back down to us to make the changes that they see that needs to happen.
They could, but they don't have.
But they don't have. Right, they could, that's what I'm saying, I'm not saying.
When that happens, they don't bring it back down. What they do is approve it with conditions.
Yeah, they usually.
But they could come back down.
They
to
could.
us.
So what I would suggest, because the city council, particularly the first version that I drafted and gave to you guys a couple months ago, that was with the city council's recommendations. If you don't like that, like Joey's saying, can we work with it? Then I think the recommendation would be, council, you suggested X. We disagree with X and would recommend Y. But if you're gonna say from a specific recommendation they gave, please consider this. I think it's incumbent upon you to say, well, you don't like that and why you're recommending something different. So your recommendation doesn't just have to be, city council gave us something, we have to recommend up or down. In fact, that hasn't been the process yet to date, because I've already taken suggestions from the planning commission, as long as I thought that they were not adverse to the councils, and input those. And then the second thing I want to say is that I've given you guys two ordinances. When I say two, one's a licensure ordinance, and one's a land use ordinance. The planning commission has no ability to make a recommendation on the licensure ordinance, other than we don't recommend the land use ordinance without the companion licensure ordinance. So I built some things into the licensure ordinance that are very significant. And I spoke with Heath about this on my way over. Heath, he's on the line. I wanted to take a careful look at that again, but I built some things into there in the licensure ordinance that requires the manager who obtains the license to run this by the same standards. They call it a horizontal hotel. You know, you got houses spread out, or run it by the same standards that the Utah Administrative Code requires out of those who run highly rental operations like that, for the safety and all that. So when you're thinking about this, I want you to focus on the land use. And even though that's not your ability to recommend the licensure part, I want you to carefully consider that as well, because they're going to go, I suggest they go to the path. Okay. So anyway, that's my comments so far based upon the public input and questions. I'm open for more questions, or you guys can debate it.
Well, I've lost a lot of sleep over this, thinking about it. I feel like, we moved here because it's a small town, a small field. The general plan states that everywhere throughout the plan. There's no question that our general plan steers us to make a decision that I believe in as a planning commission that would say we maintain that small rural feeling, right? And I don't believe that nightly rentals in a commercial development do that. There are several spots in the general plan. One of them being in the it says non-residential, and it specifically states in the non-residential in the general plan that we don't allow rental properties for non-residents within our city. Another spot it talks about, I'll just read it. Under desired future conditions, it states, as a priority, the city will maintain and enforce land use policies and ordinances that complement the area's rural lifestyle and character. So to me, when I look at that and I say, is that what we're preserving as a planning commission, planning body? I would say, no, we're not. That's not what that is. Everything that I saw in there takes us away from that as far as doing the nightly rentals. We've put a lot into our general plan in 2017, but we've also recommissioned, have another one going right now. We started that in March, and in that time, we've met with engineering 3 different times to discuss how to put this plan together, what the best thing would be. We've also met as a steering committee, which brought in representatives from planning commission, staff, engineering, city council, and at-large members in the community to create this survey. We've gotten that survey back, and that survey says, it absolutely points to, we do not want this type of land use in Tokerville. So and then I look at it like you're saying, we've got to give them a recommendation. And I believe, could that recommendation be, we recommend that you deny this ordinance with a recommendation that if you don't, that you send it back to us to reevaluate. Is that something that we can do?
You can make what sort of recommendation you want. In the recommendation, a couple things. One, I would suggest that you cite to the provisions of the general plan specifically that you feel govern the issue. So it's less helpful to say our general plan doesn't allow, right? It'd be more helpful. But if you say we recommend denial of this, and we also recommend that for any future consideration of, I'll use further consideration of a nightly rental development, you send it back to us for I guess, reconsideration or drafting what the planning commission thinks would be the appropriate sort of nightly rental development.
Right.
Yes, you can make the recommendation, basically whatever you want, but include within the recommendation why you do or don't like what the council has asked you to consider.
Even with that recommendation, asking them to send it back, they don't.
No, they don't have to. That's understandable.
Yeah,
I'd like to speak on that.
Go ahead. This is our discussion.
This is a land use item. And the rules of your general plan is merely not recommendations. You have to adhere to your land use items in your general plan. It clearly states that in law. So I want to read to everybody just a little bit on the general plan. And I want to tell you, this older general plan prohibits it, but this new general plan really sways to, we're tired of tourism. We don't want to be a tourist destination. I'm going to read a few of these to you, if that's okay. Quiet community, 98% in favor of it. Small town atmosphere, 96% in favor of it. Preserve agriculture when possible. Yes, I would guess that's around 89%. Continue to limit short-term rentals. That's a big yes. Preserve and establish open space. Support low-density developments, 1 to 2 acres per unit. Support high density. That's a big no. This is the new general plan you're going to get.
So just to clarify, that is the survey that's in
That
the
is the
process
survey.
of creating the new one. That hasn't been.
It will be adopted. If you ever seen a council not adopted.
But it's still, and that's why I made the comments about how much work has gone into this.
A lot of
The
work.
survey is still a valid survey, those types of things.
Promote the city as a tourist destination. Like 85%, we don't want to promote it. Do not promote the city as a tourist destination. No. These are the things that are in the general plan, but being a land use item, I do not think the town can kick it back up or make their own decision against the old general plan and the new general plan to make up their own mind that they want this and override.
They can't.
They might be wrong.
Now they can't.
They
It's
may
a
not
land
get,
use item and you have to stick.
Well,
I
people
agree.
people can speed, even though they're not supposed to.
Well, that's true.
Okay,
But
so the
it's-
council could make a decision.
but they may not get reelected. If
Well,
they
they,
make
in,
those
in,
It could be challenged.
in conscience, would they really make that decision? I mean, I've put in a lot of effort in this for a week and a half, thinking about it, trying to talk to people, trying to think of Tocqueville and every one of the council members. I can remember exactly what they said in their promotion to get elected was, we want to preserve the small town feel. We want to be rural. This is not rural. I'm sure that's a great development out there, but it doesn't fit Tocqueville, and the general plan is stating it doesn't fit Tocqueville. And some of the reasons also is the primary access to their nightly rentals is off the parkway. So sure, you're going to go off the parkway to get to your place, but what's the number one tourist destination in this town?
Tocqueville
Tocqueville
Falls.
Falls. And quite frankly, I'm probably off the point, but all the side-by-sides and motorcycles, where are they going to go? They got to come right through town, not access off the bypass. Plus, we're going to have the noise. There's a lot of impacts that I think the citizens have realized, and that's why we came up with this updated survey. I really believe that's an impact. We don't want that impact. I just feel that you need to deny this on the grounds that it does not meet your general plan.
So what Bruce had said is that we have to send up a recommendation to.
It's a recommendation to deny because it doesn't fit our, isn't that a recommendation?
It can be a recommendation. I'm just.
I know it wasn't last time,
But
because
last time you had to recommend, and this time you're making a recommendation.
it's okay. We're gonna make sure that's in there. If we do that, it's gotta be a recommendation.
Right, a recommendation, and then support it with the citations, the general plan, or whatever it is.
Well, we have the new and the old. I just feel.
Let's hear what Valerie has to say.
I think that we all believe that Sun River Firelight is going to do a nice development up there. I think we all agree on that. I think we all agreed or knew that there were going to be hotels in the city center area, right? We're okay with that. To some degree, okay? But what we're not okay with is the residential nightly rental thing. That's my take. Am I saying it correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe that takes away from all the nightly rentals you have in your town, the ones in the residential zone.
Yeah.
It robs from them.
Yeah, it would.
So there are several aspects in the general plan that specifically state that we, to promote the nightly rentals that we have now, which is residential, but also non-residential, not to promote those as rental properties.
So let me clarify that, just
Yeah.
to make sure what's in it. There's some aspects of the current nightly rental permitting requirements, maybe it's in the general plan that say you can only have a nightly rental if you live in Tocqueville.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
we
not
know.
gonna survive.
No, we know we've got to
Okay,
rework
so
that.
yeah, just don't, a recommendation on that one wouldn't be.
However, I do believe that it shows the intent of the general plan, and that was to keep it small, community-based, not a tourist destination owned by, and I understand that. I get, that makes sense to me, but
Right,
it's
yeah, so I'm
definitely,
not,
it's steering to
Inferences
saying,
you guys
hey,
can draw, I just
we
wanted to
like
know.
the idea that, we have the ability to help make ends meet for local residents and that kind of thing. We don't look at the idea or like the idea of, hey, come invest in Tocqueville so you can have nightly rentals and change change that aspect of Tokerville. To me, I look at it and I understand we've got to come up with a recommendation. I believe that that recommendation, unless I'm told that I'm not correct, could be that we recommend that you deny this ordinance based on the general plan. And if they choose to approve it, then we recommend that you kick it back down to us for further review.
So,
Like
Oh,
that.
I'm sorry.
I don't like that, because then they will do it.
So I have all kinds of thoughts. My first is, we don't have a current version of whatever he has. There's two in our file, claim and a red line, both of which still say the primary. Which is like change. There's also some other things from October that we talked about that didn't get updated, and I had some comments from somebody that asked if we have some time as well. There's a bunch of line items that I think we should go through, because if we have to send recommendations, we should look at paper, at least look at every line item, the way we would any ordinance, and redline our own. We're allowed to go through and make suggestions on individual items. I'm not just pass or fail, correct? We're allowed to do that. So we keep talking about pass or fail. I actually approve or recommend. I feel the same way everybody does here. If faith, I think we need to maybe take the opportunity of looking at the table this, get the appropriate version, and look at it and maybe the staff go through and fix whatever it is we discuss, and get a current version back on our page, which then we can go through line by line, talk about what if we're going to go through what we'd like it to see it be, and then even then you can still say we don't want to see it go through, but if there's a minimum fees, it's going to be.
I thought we kind of already done that, went through and said, this is the things we want to change, that, and Bruce made changes.
But they're not changed.
Well, yeah, I overlooked one, right? The Parkway's still in there.
Right.
So there is not another word, let me clarify, there's not another version where the Parkway came out, it's still in there. It was supposed to come out.
When we talked last time, if you do, the total numbers, there's a note on the red line that you were going to do some research on total number of units. We
That-
got concerned about that, and I didn't see that.
My notes were that the planning commission was gonna look at total numbers. It's not wasn't my job. to
Right,
look at
right.
total numbers. It's the planning
Right.
commission. And I didn't, because my job is to wordsmith what people.
Yeah, we had that conversation, because we referred it back to the RV rental thing and 10% versus,
And so I didn't come up with
There
a
hasn't been.
number. I was waiting for the planning commission to give me that. They hadn't, so I got to what I was to draft.
So-
The Parkway issue, I look at that now, and that should have been redlined out, it's still in there. So I would, whatever you consider tonight, just consider it as though, I'm telling you that it has to be located off the Parkway, but be redlined out so that it can be located, the proposal would be located anywhere in an MPDO.
which has to be 100 acres. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Was that the only change that you did? That you did, you know?
No, that, I've got a red line of a whole bunch of things. Red line version 5, does it say V5? Yeah, that's the most current.
No, they're both for.
Just to add this, when I met with Tim had told me that he was looking for 175 townhomes in his area, so that's what he was proposing.
Right.
However, that is open in the ordinance.
Right.
He could do anything he wanted to do.
my biggest deal with this, is that, first of all, I'm a firm believer in property rights. And a property owner should be able to do what they want to do with their property to maximize their return on their investment. When I buy stock, I want that stock to go up just as high as it possibly can. And I don't see it any different than buying stock. It's an investment. I get that. Spent millions of dollars on that piece of property. We have benefited by using that property. We have benefited by all the taxes that they have paid on that property, which is enormous. That being said, I don't think the city should just give the developer everything that they want. I get you want to maximize your profit. I get that. But I don't think that we should go against the general plan. I think the residents here should have a say in what happens to a certain extent. You know, we shouldn't be able to prohibit you from developing, any developer, any landowner, from prohibiting you to develop. But I do think we should be following the general plan. You know, I look at this and say it's 300 dwellings. We have in Tokerville proper, there's got to be 20,000 acres that could be developed in Tokerville. And if we're going to allow that 300 in every 100 acres, we're talking an enormous number. Now, most likely that's not going to happen, but it could. I don't see, and the residents have spoken pretty clearly with this survey. I don't see that we should be allowing that. Plus the fact, let's say that they only do 175 firelights, even though this is not firelights ordinance, I get that. I mean, but anyway, let's say they only do 175, and whoever else builds out 1,000 homes. We have 4,000 acres to the west. We have all of this. Every one of those residents still have the right to buy a home there and do a short-term rental. Every one of them. So now we could, theoretically, this town could turn into a nightly rental place, period. Why wouldn't somebody do it? I can invest money. I know people who own nightly rentals that just use it for vacation. It's a smart investment, but that's not what the town wants. And I just cannot wrap my brain around ever recommending that we do a nightly rental ordinance like this for I just think it goes against everything that the people in Tokerville want.
Would you like to say something?
I said my deal, I'm just listening.
No.
Thank you.
You know, I'm all for property rights. But when development comes to town, they need to do their due diligence. We had a nightly rental ordinance in place. So we're not taking nothing away from them. No rights, no nothing. We're protecting the town for the general plan. We're not infringing on them. I mean, 300's, can you please tell me what detached means
Yeah.
in your plan here?
Attached, so think of townhomes that you have units that are attached with the wall, with the separation between them is the wall. Detached means the product is separated. Your typical single family home.
With a casita?
Well,
Detached? Is that the intent of detached?
If you're allowing that casita to be utilized.
Cannot be in Tokerville ordinance. No.
State law trumps when it comes to the interior accessory dwelling. I mean, there's a trump right there for that. But if that casita is used as a second residence, it would be in violation, but for accessory dwelling.
Thank you.
It would be the violation of single family residence zoning in the first place. And so it would then have that problem, and if they're using it as a separate single family dwelling, it probably doesn't look be considered an attached property. But this is a state law accessory dwelling unit exception to all of that, okay? So,
So are you thinking, this idea that this is no different than a hotel that's just flat, I do not buy into that. Nobody's going to be building 10,000 hotel rooms in this town. That's just not going to happen. But the potential for nightly rentals is huge. And I realize it's a exaggerated number. I get that. Even 1,000, which is very probable. This is not the same as a hotel. A hotel, people come and they stay the night and they may stay 2 nights and they go home. In a nightly rental, and I have rented them, and you show up with your 4-wheelers and your side-by-sides and you go to Tokerville Falls and they drive through town and we have to listen to it and all of that stuff and the parties at night and the swimming pool and all of that, this is not what the town wants.
So let me add a little bit of clarification again on the number of possible units. And the planning commission recommended wholesale denial. I'm not speaking against that. I just wanted to be clear about the 300 units, how that got in there, why that's in there. Part of it was just an early off the cuff suggestion from me when this idea of a nightly rental development was being hatched, that we should have some ultimate cap. You know, we can't have to, like 300. Well, then I looked at the St. Louis City ordinance, what they have, with respect to nightly rentals, and this little table about 30 to 60, 51 to 121, sort of adapted and modified from St. Louis City. So if you, and I get the sense you do not want to make any favorable recommendation, maybe I have no, it's not my job to agree or disagree with that. But with the idea of 300, if you wanted to recommend it against a piece of it, say, look, I don't think that any development should have
More than 10%,
yeah,
whatever that is.
whatever that is, you know, of all, if you got 100 acres, not more than 10% of it can be nightly rental, development product. Awesome. You can make that sort of a recommendation piecemeal, if you, but again, it's up to you guys to decide whether you're making a wholesale recommendation for or against, or a piecemeal recommendation.
I'm hoping that the city council will look at the discussion of this versus just an ordinance or a recommendation. Because I don't know how you could incorporate all of the discussion into a recommendation.
Well, this is, okay, for me, if I was sitting on the city council, and I'm not here, and maybe I don't have time to sit here and listen to the minutes of the meeting, what I would want the planning commission to do is take this whole discussion and have it typed up as sort of recommendation is. Our recommendations are based upon the discussion we've had here. You can not necessarily word for word, because some of you have said the same thing.
The bullet points of it all.
Yeah, the bullet points of it all. You type that up and you send that along. That's what I think is prudent for you to do, to give your recommendation and so they clearly understand why. To say we recommend denial based upon our discussion, is less helpful.
So maybe what we should work on is our overall recommendation, and then go in and touch on those points so they can
Create a
refer
bullet point
back to
list and say,
those.
here's our bullet point
Make
list.
it a bullet point.
So Daisy, can you do that little type of bullet point up?
Well, if you guys do it, if you make a recommendation, and rather than make a glean through that, just make your recommendation. We recommend what I think we're going to recommend. We recommend denial for the following reasons. If you guys just summarize that right now,
General plan.
you can say general plan sections. 1, 2, 3.
You're violating your land use code. You're violating people's trust. That's all it is.
And just so you know that the general plan is usually a policy guide, not a controlling guide.
Right.
It's only a controlling guide if your zoning ordinance calls it a controlling guide as opposed to just a policy. But anyway, I don't care whether you believe on that or not.
Our
If you
ordinance
think
does.
No, our ordinance does.
Yeah, so the recommendation would be, we recommend denial for the following reasons. And you guys just spend a little extra time saying it doesn't comply with a section of blank, blank, and blank, the general plan. The general plan is incorporated in the zoning ordinance at section whatever. It goes against the survey that the town's recently had conducted. It seems to have the potential for too many units. And not that we're recommending, but if we did, we would recommend something like a percentage of the total MPDO. So, which I think is smart, frankly. I think it's smart. So you don't have an MPDO that's only nightly rentals.
And we have an RV rental ordinance that we've been working on, and we're looking at, what is it? 5%, 10%, 10% of all of that. I mean, so, allowing them 10.
Right. And so I would just create a bullet point list.
I feel like this list could be very long term for us, but there's a lot of high emotions and thoughts and concerns and ideas of what we want to get to people. And I don't know that I probably captured anything that's
I think we've been talking quite a bit.
Would you like me to read you the consistency policy of Tocqueville City on the general plan?
You're gonna have one chance to cite everything at this council, though, so if you table it and I'll put my notes to something.
I don't want to take it either.
Tocqueville, in accordance with Utah Code, annotted section 10-9-A401, the city council has adopted a policy that all land use decisions, e.g. whatever, zoning, location of buildings, such and such, must be in conformance with the general plan. This is Tocqueville's.
That's why I think in your recommendation,
That one right there.
you include that as part of your recommendation. I'm saying that's an appropriate
I think, I
thing to
think
cite.
we've gotten kind of the direction that we need to take. You guys don't want to table it, so now we've got to come up with the recommendations.
But when you say you guys, you probably got to.
Well, I'm not just saying them, I mean everybody.
Okay, yeah.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
is there- Sean, is there-
I'm looking here because that's where most of this.
I only heard two people not wanting to table.
I said you guys, but I
Is there-
apologize.
Do you guys want to table it or do you want to, what is your feeling on that?
Well, I actually think that might not be a bad idea to make sure that we have all our ducks in a row so that we get all of our ideas down. I mean, if we send it up half worked, half baked, then is it easier for the city council to vote or go a way that we don't want them to go? If we have all of our ducks in a row, is that going to make them more prone to listen to us more? I don't know. That's.
Let me just say this to you. When it goes to the city council, who's going to be advising the city council, legally advising this? It's going to be me.
I think you've captured the spirit.
Right, and so if you, in my view, it's a lot easier to give advice if you've got the detail of all of what you want to say. If you, half of what you want to say, and the council makes a decision to go against it, I wish they would have considered this, then, but that's your opportunity, and I'm not telling you what to make as recommendations, I'm just saying, if you're looking for me to be able to advise, it's, to me, an easier job for me, and not you have to make it easy for me, but the obvious fact is, I'm here as conflict counsel. Right? I've only been here for less than a year now, almost a year, but really diving into this, and particularly this one ordinance, I'm the new guy in the block, newer than all of you guys. And so the more you guys can cite to the basis for your decision, the easier it is for me to then give advice. If you just say we deny because of the general plan, well then guess who's got to go read the whole general plan? Me. If you cite the specific sections, and I tried to open the general plan, and my computer doesn't like it. It's like block, malware, block. It won't let me open the general plan. So, but that's just a thought. Just have, because you got to understand the guy that's going to be advising them again will be me, just like I'm advising you guys. And my role will be a little different there because they can choose to believe you or not. Right? So if you want them to listen to you, the more you, the better you can say it, the better off you are. That's just my
Question.
And I'm not suggesting you need to table, okay? I'm just saying, if you're gonna take it, take the time tonight, if you're gonna do it, and list them out.
My question is procedural question. If we table it, we have to have a forum where we can get together, compile those ideas. And if the only forum we've got is in this planning commission meeting.
No, well, in a planning commission meeting, you can have a work meeting between now, and I would,
Have a work meeting, do we have to publish it? And
you have,
Yeah,
you post
you
it,
can have
but,
whatever you want on those days, if you want, like, in November, but
so let's assume that you would have tabled it, I know there was a suggestion for 40 days, but let's just say you table it for a month or two. And And I'm not making any suggestions about how long or whether you should. But let's call it, if you have a work meeting in 30 days, after you've done some brainstorming or whatever, and you sit and talk about, okay, we talked about it tonight. I came to my work meeting with my list, and I cited the city code, hey, here's my list. Match that up with everybody else's so you can then hone that down into a single list. And if you go see other projects, you can, you don't have to. Whatever you think you want to do. And then for the next planning commission meeting, I would renotice it as a public hearing because you're then going to be making statements that are part of your actual recommendations. You haven't made one yet. And the public should be a part of the process of which you make your recommendation. That's what I would suggest if you choose the table. If you don't choose the table, I would say, look, spend what time you need to tonight to get as much of your thoughts in the bullet point list as you can. Because if you want to be heard, the only way you're going to get heard is to put in that list.
After you have a comment?
Well, I'm just saying, I'm not saying table or don't table it either, obviously that's your job. We are having, just as a way of looking at it, we also have a public hearing, a public open house at the next planning commission for the general.
So how long do you think before the general plan is going to be?
We have to have one more public hearing at the planning commission, take whatever happens at the next planning commission, and then they will draft the general plan and bring it back, and then we go to the council.
Maybe we should be waiting until after that general plan, because then we could cite the latest general plan. Now we're pushing 3 months.
Well, you can, but your recommendation on the general plan of what the council, what I would say, in fairness to the council, if you want to push it down that far, I would ask them to consider at their meeting next week, whether they want you to wait that long, or whether they want your recommendation for that. Said differently, and not computing any more to anybody, to you or me. What the planning commission can't do, because I'm not saying anything, is stalemate things. So the legislative body can't act as they're trying to act. And so what I would say is, if the council next meeting said, take what time you want. You want to get this right, wait till the new general plan is in place and then go through recommendations, then awesome. But if they say, no, we feel like we need to address this sooner than that, let's have your recommendations by whenever, then.
I don't think they would do that, just because I think they know the feeling of the planning commission.
Well, it's hard not to know.
Well, we got 2 city council members sitting right here.
I'm saying it's hard not to know.
Yeah, it's hard not to know, and not that, but, they may just say, make a dang decision.
Well,
That's kind of how I feel, let's make it.
Well, that's
dang
what I'm
decision.
I don't know that waiting until the new general plan is in place is what you need to do or should do. Or if it's going to change your opinion at all.
Right.
So it's not, then why delay?
Right.
Are any of you opposed to having a work meeting?
I am. I want to send a clear message up
Right.
that we don't want this. The town don't want it. That's
But
the
if-
message I want to send, is a clear message. If you table it, it invites more alterations of it, more,
I'm not going to change
we
it.
just don't want it.
No, I'm not saying that if, the work meeting wouldn't be to change this.
No.
The work meeting is to say, this is why I do want it or I don't want it,
Yes.
and cite like that
Yes.
you just read.
So that we all come to the work meeting with our notes, and we have gone through this with a fine tooth comb, say, and we have our notes as to why we don't want it. We put all those together at the work meeting. And then when we come to the next planning commission, then we have a clear, concise idea of where we're going.
But I could quote all the codes right now tonight.
I can't.
You have some, but you have all of them?
I got everything that's applicable to this decision because I spent a week and a half doing it. And if the town council does not read their own general plan, nor their ordinances, then yeah, they could decide they want it. But I can't imagine a council member deciding they'd want it. I just can't imagine
So
that.
just,
So if I don't send a clear message and you table it, then it's open to discussion after discussion, because you can't just table it so we can work on it. Because they're gonna
I'm not
want it.
insensitive to this, okay? This is an example. In King County, I have a client that believes that the King County commissioners built the project in violation of the general plan. My office is helping those people appeal that decision of the King County Commission because it's in violation of the general plan. But the King County Commissioners nonetheless made the decision to approve the project, even though it was not in compliance with the general plan. So what I'm saying is, the city council here can make whatever decision they choose to make. And then other people affected by that decision get to choose whether to appeal that or not as being in compliance with the ordinances and plans or not. And it's just their, it's just the prerogative, you know, they can choose to be wrong and they can choose to be right. And if you know all of those things that suggest this should not be approved, then I'm saying write them down, you know, and if you have them all tonight, then pass them around and then maybe you can vote on tonight. But my job is sort of easy because ultimately the majority vote in the planning commission about whether you table or not. And so I don't care about what any one person likes to table or likes not to table. Because it's you guys that get to decide that. And then all I get to say is, the majority said, don't table. Here's
So-
our recommendation. So the majority says, let's table and go for this work meeting and renotice it, and then that's what happened.
Well, and just going with what Val was saying, this is the thing, if you, like, I understand what you're saying you want to send a very clear message. You made your mind up, you've got it for a week and a half, and you researched this, and you want to send a very clear message. What Val is saying is not that she doesn't want it, I'm hearing you right, not that you don't want to send a clear message, but you want to send a unified message.
Unified,
Where
clear
you
message.
not- That you want it unified.
Right.
And that's why you're asking to table it and have her.
Okay, so
Because you've got two people that want to put their thoughts down, so you're not sending a unified message. It's
yeah.
one or two go. So if I'm hearing you right, you're not asking the table to get new versions,
No.
new additions. You're asking because you want to put your thoughts down and send a unified message to the council.
Yeah, and I think on that, do you guys feel comfortable making a motion one way or the other on this? We could make the recommendation and do bullet points, or we could
So
table it and then get time to do the bullet points.
so Wayne's saying he's comfortable with all of the,
He feels like he's got
he can
it.
cite whatever. I feel pretty comfortable in citing why I don't like this agreement. But if you guys need time to go through, and I get that, then I don't know that I have a problem with that either. But I don't want to kick it down the road for.
I don't
ever
either. I don't either.
Should we make an attempt to do the bullet points, see where we get? If we don't feel comfortable with what we're doing, then we decide to postpone it, or not postpone it, but have a work meeting and figure those things out. Does that sound like something we ought to do? Okay, then I say that's what we do.
The
Let's,
work meeting will be only planning commission, is that correct?
I'm sorry.
Work meeting right now.
Yeah, we have to.
It's,
They just don't, you just don't have to take public comment.
and it's not a public hearing, it's
It's
just
not
a
a public
work
hearing,
meeting.
it's a public meeting.
So that would give us an opportunity to go through it and do it. But if we feel like we've got enough, we can do it either way,
How much do you need?
whatever we're comfortable with. So,
Yeah, and I think what Sean is saying is,
One shot.
Let's put the list together as far as we can tonight, and then everyone says,
That'll work, let's do it.
then you don't have to postpone, but if, or table, but if the majority, even if the majority vote, the majority says, you know what, I still need to put my thoughts together a little bit more on 3 or 4 things, then the majority can say, no, we're not giving any more time, we're just going with this, or you can say, no, let's get some more time, let's have a look at it, let's come back.
So if we do, if we table it for a work meeting, whenever, I'm not up for special meetings because I don't
I'm not
like it,
suggesting
but it's gonna take some time.
Yeah,
Get it
that's my
right.
concern is how much time do we have to give it tonight? As opposed to,
Probably not much, but
No,
as
no,
in,
no.
If we do a list, a bullet point, right?
no, I meant as opposed to spending the time tonight, as opposed to having another meeting and just concentrating on that.
well, could you guys lighten our load and not send us
Still
any
have-
ordinances to pass next planning commission so we can do it?
No, you guys give us
Okay, well, let's make that decision now. Let's decide whether or not we're going to,
We can't tell people to not give us that date.
let's make that decision right now. If we're gonna bullet point it and give a recommendation, let's do that now. If that's what we feel like we can do, or let's not, but we gotta figure this out. So which way do you wanna go? Do we wanna bullet point it, or do we want to move on? And I heard you guys say it, if you feel like we got enough, then let's put it down.
Everybody has a valid idea here.
Yeah,
2 other discussion ordinances. We've got a lot still on.
Yeah,
yeah, we do. Yes, we do.
Where, Sean, maybe you bring it ahead is just have someone make a motion.
yeah, that's
Either
kind of.
table tonight or to attempt the list tonight.
Make the motion.
And then you vote and see which way you're gonna go.
I make a motion that we table it until we can have a work meeting so that we are prepared for the next planning meeting in January.
So your motion, just so I'm clear in the head, your motion is that we will schedule a work meeting between now and next planning meeting. Yeah, I'll second that.
Got a motion in a second? For the vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
My job.
And I said, I'm ready to just do this.
I don't have any skin in it either way, but that's what the majority vote does.
I still am.
You
I'm just,
voted too quick.
I know,
but
sorry.
It's all right.
Okay, so the motion's been,
They need to stay though, they have majority.
Yeah,
They're spraying the same direction.
so, okay. Sean, they're saying.
I didn't hear last vote.
mine's a nay, but I agree with the validity of it.
So we have voted in favor of tabling this, this item to allow us for a work meeting sometime in the near future, hopefully. Yeah, next couple
Can we
weeks.
pick a date right now
I
so that
actually
we're
would
not?
like to do that if we can, if we can all come up with a date. I don't know if it's easy for you to do that off the cuff.
Let's do it.
I would much rather have that.
I missed the last supposed meeting, that work meeting you guys had. You know,
How about the first week of January? Then we're through with Christmas and everything.
Get it, let me look at her.
January, that would give us just a week before.
What do you think my schedule's moving?
You're only gonna have
Yes.
one meeting.
There you go.
Okay, all right.
Just pick a
You
day.
got 1 week, Wayne?
13th, when is our next planning commission?
The
11th.
11th.
The 11th of January.
I will be
So we're gonna have it 2 days after our other meeting.
No, we need to have before then.
No, it would be sometime in the week before.
like
the-
Tuesday,
to
the
the
3rd, or Wednesday, the 4th.
I would- Yeah,
Our meeting's on the
It's a
11th.
city council
So let's-
meeting,
let's pick
so you-
Tuesday, the 3rd. How does that look?
Tuesday the 3rd, I can't do 3rd.
Okay. Monday, the 2nd.
City hall.
Where are you at?
I'm gone.
It's a
I'm
holiday.
gone.
That's a holiday.
Oh, that's right.
That's, how about the 5th, Thursday the 5th?
Okay, how
How
about
about Wednesday the 4th?
the 4th is
City council.
city council meeting.
We could do it.
During the day.
Yeah,
Do it earlier.
why
But
can't we?
the one, I would give you one suggestion mind that, I mean, I know you're just trying to do that for, just for noticing and stuff like that, to get it on your agenda, maybe push it till like the day before.
Right.
For sure.
Before, you know what I mean?
Yeah, before our next
Yeah.
planning
That's what I was
commission.
Because for the next meeting on the 11th, we're going to have the public hearing
Right,
for, for your recommendation.
for a recommendation.
No, there's no public hearing, not again, there's no public hearing, you're not changing the ordinance.
If you're not, but my view is that the public's entitled to vote.
No, because they're not changing anything, they're having a
Just
work
make-
meeting.
Just making.
Well, public noticed that they're gonna have a meeting.
That's true.
The public could attend.
The recommendation, you already had all the public hearing on
Public
this.
meeting, not a public hearing.
Why can't you just
Okay.
have it on planning commission day on the 11th?
I'm with you.
Well, that
Speak-
doesn't give us.
You can.
Because you'll have a whole plate full of stuff again.
Why?
I-
Just give
I
that
will
to us,
be-
Darren.
I will be out of town the 11th, the next planning meeting. I'm in
So-
Hawaii.
Okay, the
So are you
5th, Wednesday,
available then?
let's go Wednesday the 4th. Wayne, where are you at? Wednesday the 4th.
Wednesday the 4th.
Yeah, I'm good. Wednesday the 4th.
Wednesday, the 4th, I can do.
Gary, you good?
That's
Are you
planning.
good?
Oh, we gotta do it early. Wait a minute.
Wednesday the 4th?
Earlier in the day.
We gotta do it. I can't do it that early because
What time?
Okay, so now what
Do
time
you
do
want
we
to do
need?
it just the hour before city council? 5 p.m.?
I think we're gonna maybe need a little time with that. So I don't know if it's an hour, maybe we better give it a little bit more time.
Four?
It'll be the only item on your agenda, and everybody should be coming with their.
Yeah, that's
Right.
true. So,
Right.
I mean, you've got weeks and weeks to
Yeah.
make your bullet point.
You might not want to do so.
Yeah, let's not try to drag this
Yeah.
out.
Because like most things,
It's just a place to
I heard people's problems are like gas,
here's the,
and they will fill up whatever volume you give them.
yeah, here's what I don't wanna do is run out of time before the council meeting. So I'd rather say 4, and then if we only have to be here a half hour, that's all we do. So let's just say,
there's only 4 points to get. I mean, there's only 4 points to come up with. That's all
so
there is.
let's,
On the general plan.
hey, hold on, everybody quiet down, please.
Are you okay?
Form to whatever meeting you
Okay, Wednesday the 4th at 4 o'clock.
Got it.
Sean,
That, I'm
it's
sorry.
my sense that you guys know what you're doing, that you don't need me personally here, but if you say I want to be personally here, then I'll be here to assist you with whatever your
I'm not saying it.
recommendation is. What's that?
I'm not saying that.
Okay,
Oh, I think
thank
you should
for-
be here, because I kind of like just hanging out.
Thank you for allowing.
Yeah, we'll just, I think we're all
Okay,
right.
so we have,
Here, but
we're done with this item.
I want to give the option to say, dang, we want Bruce here, then I'll be here.
Gotcha.
Thank you, Bruce. We'll, yeah, we'll-
Yeah. If I get an email.
Okay.
saying,
We're budget.
Be here,
okay.
then I'll be here.
So
Otherwise,
7 we can table.
Hold on just a second. What was that?
I knew that was my turn.
That's where Bruce leaves, that was the issue. Item number 7.
Yeah, and now, so we have a public hearing on that. Do we need to still allow that?
License. We're gonna.
We have a public hearing on that item. Do we do the public hearing and then?
Well, okay,
That's-
let me
that's
just, so hold on, let me just address item number 7 for a minute. Item number 7 truly is not a land use ordinance that the planning commission should be making recommendations on at all. Really. But it's part and parcel with the ordinance you just tabled. So in my view, item 7 should also be tabled because it's simply part and parcel. The council needs that licensing ordinance anew, notwithstanding your recommendations. If you were to, you're not, if you were to recommend this land development ordinance for approval, that land use portion of it says that the property manager who operates it must be licensed. And that's why this licensure stuff is here. But if you've already tabled the other item,
So, but it is a public hearing item. So do we hold that public hearing now?
I would open it up.
So
You
we're
might
gonna,
open it up to public hearing.
and that's what.
And then any action you would table, but you might as well hear the public on it.
Okay, we are done with business, or we've tabled business item F6. So let's move on to F7, and as we just heard Bruce say, that is something that we will open up to a public hearing. So the discussion on licensing of property manager for a nightly rental development. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak on that?
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, no? Then I will take a motion to close the public hearing.
I motion that we close the public hearing on item number 7, business item number 7, licensing property manager.
Second that.
I'll take a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
I make a motion, we table item 7. Discussion on ordinance
She already did that, you seconded it.
Huh?
She already
She
did that,
just
you
closed it.
seconded it.
Well,
Oh, sorry.
I closed
Yeah,
the
sorry.
public meeting, so.
You're right.
Go ahead. We've got a motion to table.
Business item 7.
Yes,
Business
I'll
item.
second that.
Got a motion and a second.
Aye.
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 Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you.
I hope it went well. I didn't mean to be combative or offensive. I just
Fine.
That's what it is.
clarify the challenges that you guys face.
Well, thank you for your time.
It is a challenge.
Okay.
Okay, now we're on to, business item F8, which is the RV ordinance to create standards and requirements for recreational vehicle parks. This is the, what we worked on last month with those 3 changes. I'm sorry? Yeah, go ahead, I'm gonna ask you now.
If you guys should have had this, and everything you said is not in the SharePoint, I'm pulling it out of the SharePoint as part of my comments. So sometimes they've been there. They're there, but anyway, so if you look at my comments, or just not from my comments, it's basically the density number is per acre, which is the change you're discussing.
So the density number that you're changing there is item F in this ordinance. We went from, I believe it was 14 to 10 units per acre. And then number 2 was to remove the wording of park models, which is removed in the that definition. And then letter I was to go from, I believe, I can't remember what the percentage was before, but it was to go to 10% of the total recreational vehicle spaces as nightly rentals. From 18 to 10%, that's right. And so, or cabins. So, and what's that?
Well,
Actually, it's the area.
There.
Yeah, it was a 10 by 10. So yes, that's a cabin. You know, we briefly took and looked at that Ivan's code, which we'll probably maybe bring back in a few months. But as of right now, we need to just focus on what were the changes that you guys gave to staff last time.
It's like a small house.
yeah, it's a fairly decent size.
I think we were talking like cabins or something.
So-
Well,
This is up for possible recommendation to city council. The reason we did this is we have an active permit out there now. So
but
we
this,
will be in a future discussion item and probably next month. We'll be looking at that Ivan's RV ordinance and trying to make some of those changes. So I would say that it would be a good idea. I don't know why I'm always looking at to make a recommendation on this tonight and then know that we're going to be working on this further.
We
This
make-
is-
sorry, go ahead.
No,
you could.
That is huge.
That is huge. I don't
You know, I would say, you know,
know how we got.
It was just in the ordinance last time when we looked at it, that you'd given direction for the staff to change the 3 items and then bring it back for a public hearing. So you can change that tonight, so that it is part of the public hearing.
10 by 15, right?
Just one other thought, the 10%, and, looking at that items,
Mhm.
it talks about, I'm sorry, not 10%. Or, let's see, what was I looking at? I just lost. Number of units per acre. I think that says we went from, what was it that we had, 14 down to 10.
Right.
That's what I meant. So the items actually has a smaller
Number.
number than that.
Yeah.
It's 7.5. I think that might be a little bit restricted, but we could leave that now and then come back and change it. Or,
It kind of gets into the, that's their RV park. If it's going to be cramped, it's not going to be busy for them.
and that's what so anyways, on
I
that,
agree.
Sapp Brothers came back and said there's nothing that was restricted.
Yeah. So just so you know, they are not being held to a change that they're being held to that, the ordinance, the original ordinance that was in place. He just came back and he's realized, or didn't realize when he first proposed, he said, your guys' ordinance is way too loose. He says, because I can't physically put what you guys allow and make it as successful, because he agreed with what Wayne's recommendations from going around to the pros and cons of existing ones that are here in southern Utah right now. And just so you know, he did pull off his cabins. He's not doing cabins, he's doing executive sites, which will have little fences around them and more private than the normal ones.
Recommendation on the changes that we made last month, and any new changes you want to send up now. And that's what we're doing. And we will be working on the RV ordinance again.
Right.
Okay. I'm sorry. I thought you
I
said,
sent a letter, they sent you an email, I don't know if you saw it.
I did not see it. I'm sorry.
So I was working, so I know there's a different authority to pick up, but, I remember there's some discussion in time where, it's that might be like a structure, and that, it should have that wording in there, because then we've got all the
So that's part of what the IBANS does, is it actually gives you definitions of all of these things and why I think we need to look at that and bring it in.
And I thought there was a conversation about, there's nothing in the ordinance currently about staffing on site, or
Yes, and that's also in the IBANS, it talks about that as well. So there's a lot of loose ends that I think it will bring together, so. But just so we can say we have an ordinance that works for us right now and with the idea of getting it going. Okay, if you guys don't have any more thoughts or ideas, I'm going to open up the public.
Do we want to change that 825? That's probably the only comment.
That's what I would change it to.
Okay. All right.
That's a 10 by 15 cabin.
Yeah.
Okay. I will open up the public hearing on item F8, discussion on ordinance, RV ordinance to create standards and requirements for recreational vehicle parks.
My name's Diane Sands. I live at 409 Zion Trail. And I just had one question on page 3, item P. I was curious as to how you came up with the time limit. It says after a time limit is reached, a renter cannot re-register for a minimum of 48 hours.
Answer that? Can we answer that?
I guess, okay. I guess my question or my concern is that I don't believe that time frame is long enough. I think somebody could pull off to the side of the road and just sit there for 2 days and then pull right back in. So I think that my opinion is it should be longer than 48 hours. Just if you're trying to get people to go out and not have the same people come right back in.
Any other comments? Okay. a motion to close the public
I'll
hearing.
make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Take a vote.
Well,
Oops.
okay, I was just gonna say,
No, any further discussion? Go ahead.
huh?
Take more discussion.
The occupancy is limited to a total of 90 days, and it can't exceed 28 consecutive days. So if they've been there 28 days and they pull out,
The motion was to close the public
Oh.
hearing. We'll discuss it.
oh, okay, sorry.
No,
sorry.
fine. So we've got a motion and a second to close the public hearing.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Just to address her comment, and also the 48 hours after that, you don't get any rental impacts, right, for so long.
Right,
After they leave and they come back.
Right.
They start collecting again. So
Right.
it's really important.
right, yeah.
It wasn't
Coming back.
Coming
in.
back.
It wasn't about when it's the same person who
It's
has
the
anything back, it's about collecting rentals.
Right.
The transient.
I remember.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember that now.
45 days, you can only get it for the 28, that's be gone and come back.
Yes,
So it triggers the tax switch and debt.
yes. Okay, thank you.
That was a lot different than that.
And I think, I've reviewed that Ivan's fairly extensively, and I think there's a lot of things in there
That will help us.
that'll help us out. So when we get that as discussion item, we'll clean,
That's where discussion items are on work.
yeah, right. So, okay, so I heard there might be some changes that we want to make. 845 is too much, so if you guys want to make a change or whatever. you want to do.
I would say 150 to 200
Yeah,
at the
200.
max.
Yeah,
10 by
200,
20,
10 by
10 by
20 is
15.
big.
What do you guys think?
200 max, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say 200 max.
I've never seen one quite like that big, but that's, that would be.
I think with everything else we were looking at, we just probably missed that.
Right.
Okay, so, and then the other changes we have are changing, if you would remind me, I'm sorry,
Oh, yeah, it is the 10 units per acre.
10 units per acre.
The letter F,
Mhm.
taking out the wording, park model. Because we're breaking it out. The letter I has been changed to 10% of the total recreational unit spaces for your nightly activity. How many number of RV units? 10%.
Nightly.
That's how you
Okay.
know your number of nightly activity. Or cabins.
It's there, it's there.
Recreational vehicle park model.
So, and but we know that that's what we're changing tonight.
I'm sure that
Good catch. Okay, we don't have anything further to discuss.
I would make a motion that we approve, or that we recommend approval of this ordinance 22XX, or,
1-3.
All right, we can just say that.
pardon me? All right. With staff comments, does that work? Because we've changed all that to what the staff is saying.
Okay, so staff comments and also.
Correction of the 825 to down to 200.
Second that.
Got a motion and a second. Take a vote.
Aye.
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 Okay, we are now down to discussion items.
You're gonna tell us about fencing.
And I will get there and start that up.
so, if they can bring that benefit ordinance to start current, and we have it in the sheriff on that previous.
Yeah, I'll just read it up.
Yeah, can you scroll down to where it comes down to right there? So what this is talking about, I did not, as a citizen, I wanted to come in and build a
Yes.
or wall on Along there, our setback is 12 to 15 feet from the curb, or a 6-foot fence in the front yard. Typically, we don't do that, you don't see that in most communities. You see it cut back at least as far as our setback on the house, or the building structure. I would like to change that. So I just wanted to get your guys' permission and direction there to change that, because if we go back, that actually sets them right in, we usually have a 10-foot utility easement. That would set that wall right in the utility easement. And so it would be a bad situation if the utility companies come in and change that. We'd be fucking just build.
Yeah, you need to change that. I don't know if I like a 6-foot wall in front of the house, I don't know if we see that very much.
So you do see it in subdivisions where they come off the side of their house at the same setback as the house and go over to the side yard lot line. It's usually not in that front. But also I wanted to talk about is if we are to allow something inside, like say right at back of sidewalk or something to that effect, that it be like a 3-foot, be able to see through that fence. I've spoke with, yeah. So I'm talking, let's say somebody wanted to have one in their front yard. They wanted, so they wanted to have a picket fence, exactly, or something to that effect. Now I'm not going to call out, I don't want the fence to get it to where we call out, you got to have a white picket fence, has to be a green colors, things like that. That has to be wood, vinyl, things like that. We just want to talk about height and being able to see through that. And there's 2 or 3 reasons we want to do that is because there's a sight triangle in engineering. When you come to a stop sign, especially on a corner lot, we need to be able to see 150 feet both ways. And if you've got a 6-foot fence right at the back of almost the back of your sidewalk, it's very hard to see. And Sean and I were talking about that in his previous life when he was a firefighter. It's hard to see those things.
So it would be 3 feet with maybe a wrought iron on top or something like that. It's something that you can view through, right?
Yeah. And police prefer that as well for public safety.
Would be
So
same as the fence because
yes.
in town, but there are certain stop signs that you pull up to and you can't see down the road because there's a 7-8 foot hedge there.
Tree.
Or a fence that has vines growing on it
Yeah.
and you can't see around the corner? Yes.
That should,
Well, and that is it is not. That's yeah, I would say it needs to be 25 feet back for a 6-foot fence. And the other heights I'm not terribly don't have much heartburn with for rear and side walls on your property lines.
It's mostly just for that, being able to see into the yard, still be able to have the privacy or the security for your children, little small kids, things like that. You still want that. But the ability to put a 6-foot wall in your front yard, not.
So this height is public street. It doesn't specify front yard, right? It just says, I can't.
Yeah,
I have my.
it measures from the back of the curb. So if you come around this corner lot, it's always measured from the curb. So we would do the same.
Yeah, but if we had a house that the front was on this street, but the side was along another street,
Doesn't matter.
we would allow a 6-foot fence for privacy closer than that, right? I mean, that's not. So what I'm saying is if you go into these developments, you would see that they've got their front yard and their front access is, the fence is back, but then they are enclosed in their private backyard.
I would say on a corner lot, if we're going to define that, we would define it in there as a corner lot, that wall, if it wants to be a 6-foot on that side yard, it needs to be out of that 10-foot building.
Yeah, yeah.
On the front facing.
And that's what I'm getting at. So if we just said, hey, we want everything to be at 25 feet, that doesn't make sense. So we'd have to make a differentiation between the front yard and that side setback for 6 feet.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. I want as much direction as I can get so that I can change this and bring it back to you.
So if it's on a corner lot and we're doing this for safety purposes, doesn't matter if it's a corner, if we're going back 25 feet on the front because of safety on a corner, I would think we'd have to go back 25 feet on the side, at least for 150 feet.
Well,
You would be.
You can see you can see by the time you go back 120 or like 25 feet setback, and then you come back 10 feet on that side for a wall. You will have that 150.
Do I live on a corner lot and have my 6-foot fence and yes, by the time you decide, like, the corners here, your sides are where it cuts into the side of that other street, there's that.
You do that.
Yeah,
So
that's,
you pass the end of the backyard as you come to the corner.
I could bring in so obviously I'm not gonna have this for public hearing anything next month. We're just, I can bring you a, exhibit so you guys can see that right triangle we're talking about and how it affects, a 6-foot wall. Back, just kind of a physical diagram. If you'd like.
It has
Yeah.
to be back 25 feet.
yeah, so we're talking the front setback, your home is here, you set it back 25 feet. We have a side right here, that side setback. So you're gonna have, if you're coming this way, you've got that view coming across because you're 25 feet back, and you've got view from here because you're 25 feet back, right? So I could definitely see changing the 6 feet to say 3 feet back to 25 feet, which is our normal setback. And then on that side yard specifying the setback for that at 6 feet, so whatever that is.
Now, even in a house, in a row of houses, you can't build a 6-foot wall out the street on the side of your
And
house.
that's, so if we
Has to be
set back,
This code allows.
yeah, it does now, that's why.
So I've got one application right now. And I have all the other instances here in town where there's a 6-foot wall right at the back of the sidewalk.
You know, we take that one off West Hills, you know, just come down, you can't see nothing there. It's a bad one.
Okay, so
yeah.
do we have some recommendations to change on this? What are our thoughts?
Darren's on the right track.
I would like to see that.
I'll bring the new, just kind of red line version so you can see exactly what the code is now with my red changes. And then I'll bring those side exhibits next month.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Discussion, we're doing right now. It won't be for any type of decision at that point, then you can make a you change it to the line or whatever, and then we'll put it on for a public hearing.
So, thank you. Next item is, just a complete mess. So we've got the discussion on ordinance, discussion on Tokerville City Code, Chapter 20, conditional uses. Afton, you-
Yeah, so this one, so remember we went through all of our conditional use permits of like the renewal, or it was gonna be a planning commission renewal, or it was gonna be a staff renewal and all these things. Well, we did some digging into it and we got excited to get the software that would allow people to renew their permits online for business licenses and all of those. And then putting conditional use permits in there. State code changed about 10 years ago, where there are not renewals for conditional use permits. Our code says that they will have an annual renewal, but because those run with land, they don't require renewals. They're just strictly complaint based. So ours says like if they would have to do this or put in all this stuff, and then when you did all your homework, we had the wind farm, all of this. And so that's where all that confusion was coming from. Some of our code says this, state code says another. So we want to tidy up this ordinance and we want to remove the renewal part. The state code, but there's no renewal for conditional use. Once they have it, they have it. It's complaint, it runs with the land and it's complaint based. So we would review it if there's a complaint. Other than that, once they have their permit, they've got it. It's like you don't renew a zone change every year.
Does
Right.
that affect the abandonment though? If we were to not
Yeah,
start
there's no-
there's no
Yeah,
abandonment?
because there is no abandonment,
Yeah.
because it runs with the land. So
Yeah.
there's no abandoning the use.
Okay,
So yeah, we would take that part out, present with the red line version.
okay.
But as we're putting it into that software, there's no, and there's like software developers too, and we have versions, because we were like, and check code, obviously. So we were like, well, what are all these other cities that are using this doing for their conditional use? And they're like, yeah, they don't, they're doing it. There's no way to do it. So anyway, so that's what we like, is direction for you to redline that ordinance, put it back in front of you, removing the abandonment and the renewal conditions. It's not to,
Totally makes sense. Right.
That's the portion.
Is that the only one that talks about annual renewal? Or is it, does it say that in here? I didn't see that.
there's a part in there, there's a time abandonment, but then it talks about renewal, it says that they'll have a review by staff. We looked at it, it says the early, it might be on the application.
And that's why I'm asking, because
On the application,
I
yeah,
didn't
it was
see it on there,
listed,
so I
yeah.
wanted to make sure that if
But it
we,
is on the application, the application. That's how we saw it, yeah.
okay. So we wouldn't need to find another one that has
Right, and that
annual
was
renewal.
actually, that was actually what Wayne brought up, when he was like, look, it says right here, it's gonna bring in all of this stuff, and all this stuff, and then code doesn't, and yeah.
Okay.
But no renewal for.
So our change needs to be just taking that out and then changing the application to say
And this is one of those things where we should not be tighter than state code.
Right.
You can be on some things that tighter than state code.
yeah.
This was, we talked about it today. We talked about
I think that's,
We'll put it before you, and then you can.
okay,
Sounds good.
Thank you. Any other comments or thoughts? Okay, I adjourn this meeting. Time is 8:48.